So there was a period in time when the horror movies being put out were utter dog water. Like, bad, 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 bad. Horror as a genre has a pretty bad rap, and I don't blame general audiences for staying clear and or just being skeptical whenever a new movie comes out. I do believe, though, that we are entering an era where it's more common for these Hollywood horror movies to actually be pretty solid. But before I get into this video, I want to give a huge thank you for getting the channel to 1,000. It's pretty wild. But really, I appreciate it tremendously. I didn't think we'd get to this point, and I think it's pretty rad that we were able to, and I am excited to see where else we go from here on out. But enough of that. When talking about horror movies, we need to talk about what's been going wrong. I believe there are way too many being pushed out, and the majority are garbage. An article showed that in 1990 there were a total of 229 horror films produced. That's already a heaping amount, and that number jumped to 874 films in 2006 alone. That does, however, include all those straight-to-DVD releases and foreign films outside the US. If we take a look at 2018, there are around 50 big-budget horror films put out in theaters, and out of those 50, I would say about 6 of them range from decent to very good. That means that literally 8% of horror films released in 2018 were tolerable to watch. Now, you may think that is a low percentage, but that's actually a decent amount of good horror films when you take a look at previous years. 2004. Out of 110 horror films, 5% were watchable. Take a look at 2008. Out of 236 horror films, 0.8% of them were good. That's 2 movies out of 236 produced in 2008. I believe horror movies started to take a turn at around 2012 to 2013. This is when we got films like The Conjuring, The Babadook, all the A24 movies, etc. Not saying that the amount of good horror movies we were getting got higher, but the small amount of movies we've been getting went from being decently okay to, masterful. We've had a small revival of the psychological horror genre specifically, and we all know I'm a sucker for that. But let's look at the recent years specifically. In 2020 and 2021 alone, we got A Quiet Place Part 2, The Invisible Man, The Night House, Wrong Turn, which was actually pretty good, Spiral, and the movie that made me want to make this video, Malignant. I loved Malignant so much, and I think it solidifies what it is that is creating a turn in the genre for the better that hopefully other studios decide to follow. I will have to be spoiling this movie to explain my point. Malignant is the new James Wan movie about a lady who discovers she's having psychic visions of murders happening in the moment. The first 5 minutes of the movie give you a general idea of the tone this movie will have later on, but you do have to wait through the slower beginning and middle to get to the wild third act. I can't tell if the tease of tone at the beginning was a benefit or a downfall for this movie. On the first hand, the movie grips you for a ride, but it doesn't really give you that madness until the last 15 or so minutes, so it hinges on the audience's ability to really care about the possibility of the movie carrying out the same vibe as the beginning later on, when the movie sits at about a 2-hour runtime. Yet if the beginning scene wasn't in the movie, it risks jarring the audience too much if the first and second act are pretty generic James Wan horror, and the next minute flips over into John Wick action and murder. It also might have been a breath of fresh air for the viewer. I heard the same argument for the Evil Dead remake, where the beginning of the movie is pretty wild to keep the people watching strapped in after the next 20 to 30 minutes is all set up.
I love you, baby.
What really made me love this movie was its ability to take risks and do something actually different. I was constantly trying to guess what the reveal of the killer was going to be. Hopping around from it's just paranormal, it's all in her mind, it's just some guy, to even guessing that it's what they say it is.
He's the devil.
And if I'm going to be honest, I was pretty convinced it was all in her mind, and if that was the case, I would have been pretty pissed. I think we've seen enough of the monster being just a figment of the main character's imagination, just a tad. Trust me, when I saw it done in The Babadook, I loved it, but recently I think studios have caught on to the fact that making the audience question if what they're seeing is real is what gets people pretty freaked out, but if you keep overplaying it, it's gonna get stale fast. However, when it was revealed to be a parasitic twin in the back of her mind, I was blown away. Maybe it's because I'm still young and haven't seen every movie in existence, but it's something I've never seen before. I was genuinely shocked, and that doesn't happen very often, especially in the horror genre. And then for the creature to jam its way out of the back of her skull, possess her, and gain the strength to Mortal Kombat fatality a whole jail cell worth of women. I had a smile on my face the whole time watching it because I was like, finally, someone who is willing to go batshit crazy with a high budget and take these risks. It reminded me a bit of Cabin in the Woods with how different it went. And Malignant isn't the only horror film to take these bizarre risks that end up really paying off by at least doing something new. The Invisible Man was one of my favorite movies last year because it was consistently throwing me for a loop and I never knew where it was going to go. It even did the same mind trick where we weren't sure if it was just all in our head, and the movie actually played off of that, showing that the real threat was trying to make other people believe it was just her, even going so far to start making her believe it could in fact just be in her head, and it's little tiny differences like that that can make it feel completely fresh. I also feel a point I have to make is that it doesn't all hinge on the movie studios to revive the genre of horror, but that it also falls in the hands of the movie-going audience. If directors are going to start taking these gambles, then it also relies on the audience to accept the fact that some of these movies might start getting a little strange. There have been a couple times where I knew pretty quickly that the only way I was going to enjoy this movie was to suspend my disbelief. If I went into Malignant expecting a super serious horror thriller with a critical mindset, I probably would have hated the movie. The movie actually didn't do all that excellent when it comes to its ratings, because people thought it was just too stupid. You can't really blame someone for thinking the reveal is way too outlandish to their liking, but at the same time, the only way we're going to get new and fresh ideas is if people are willing to broaden their minds to new things, or else we're all going to end up brainwashed to a certain movie formula, which we kind of already have. There are still rules that go into structuring a movie, as there are rules when it comes to structuring music. And if you've noticed, there are times when it comes to music that people become more invested and find themselves enjoying a song more when they break that formula and switch some things around. And I believe the same is starting to apply to movies. If these films that are taking these big risks end up not being received well, it is going to push studios to go back to the original formula, and we will have made no progress. It also falls into allowing these directors to have more freedom. If directors are able to go all out and do literally whatever they want, we will probably get more unique stories. But there's still that risk that most studios don't want to take, and that's the potential of a giant flop and a waste of money, because if you have a formula that seems to work, why change it? It's a big business game, and I'm hoping that with the release of these new horror movies taking chances and being well received, it will push for allowing more creators to use their creative outlook to the fullest and really craft works of art that we've never seen before. I've said it many times before, and that's the fact that horror is one of my favorite genres because of the fact that it is so different, and to make a really good horror film takes a bit more of a challenge because I believe it takes a bit more work to invoke that feeling of fear out of an audience. And I'm talking about genuine fear, not just being startled by a jump scare. So by all means, I'm really hoping that more movies like Malignant start appearing here and there. I've been eyeballing the likes of A24, James Wan, Mike Flanagan, hell even Jordan Peele has been really branching out and creating these unique stories that I think are about to change the horror genre from here on out, and I am 100% here for it.